Our biggest takeaways from week one of the NFL season, are they overreactions or not? To the early portion of this season, tons of great action from NFL Sunday, all coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Big ups to all the everydayers out there. Make sure you're subscribed up on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Today's episode of P&W is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. It was a doozy of a week one. Still have the Monday Nighter, which should be a whole heck of a lot of fun with the Jets and the Bills. And, of course, we'll have that all broken down for you on tomorrow's episode, plus more notes from NFL week one. Matt, we got to start with some superlatives here and some ideas about the league and what we can overreact to, what I think will stick for the season. And, of course, there's a big game, and everyone's been asking us about it on social media. My 49ers faced your Pittsburgh Steelers. And earlier this offseason, you said something to the effect, and I don't want to misquote you, but it was something to the effect of, I think Kenny Pickett over there in San Francisco would look just as good as Brock Purdy and maybe a lot better than Brock Purdy, potentially. The first rounder, the first quarterback picked in the 2021 draft or the 2022 draft versus the last quarterback picked in the 2022 draft. And, man, Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers looked absolutely ready for the season, while the Pittsburgh Steelers, man, despite playing all their ones during the preseason, I thought this was the one where it's like, okay, you want to catch the Niners early. Pittsburgh Steelers may be the most ready team to play in week one in their house, and the 49ers were not having it. That was an unbelievable game, and really total domination from start to finish from the 49ers. I didn't expect it that way, even though the Niners are a good team.
So to start with what you said, we can certainly overreact on Monday after the games without question. Like, I'm not exactly going to be in the camp that the Bengals are going to be the worst offense in the league. You know what I mean? Like, that's an overreaction. What we saw on Sunday night from Dallas and what we saw Sunday afternoon from the Niners in the NFC, to me, is not an overreaction. Like, if I'm the Eagles, I'm scared that this truly is a three-horse race, and maybe they're even the three best teams in the league. I don't know. I mean, like, that, having that conversation to me is not an overreaction. Now, Steelers-Niners wasn't quite as bad as Giants-Cowboys, but boy, it wasn't far off. I mean, you don't see games like what Dallas did to the Giants last night. It felt like they could sack Jones every play. However, the Steelers didn't even belong on the same field with the Niners. I mean, you said it and you were kind. I mean, that game wasn't competitive from the start. I thought Pickett was, frankly, the worst player on the field. I mean, there were open receivers, and he's clunking them and pushing too hard and never was in rhythm. And the Steelers handed the game to the Niners, as you know better than anyone, in exactly the script the Niners love. You know, get down early, 3 and outs, tire you out. The Niners stars all came to play. And I'm going to include Mr. Purdy in that. He was phenomenal. I don't think he's McCaffrey, Trent Williams, Bosa level star, but the most important Niners were all awesome. And frankly, the Steelers were as pathetic almost as the Giants yesterday.
I mean, the stars were the stars for the most part throughout week one around the NFL. And in the Pittsburgh Steelers case, TJ Watt was a star. If you told
one guy
me
played well,
the game that TJ Watt was going to hit Brock Purdy multiple times, strip sacks, I would have said, man, that's the nightmare scenario. And, you know, I think the the 49ers might drop this one on the road. But everything else went great for the 49ers in this one. And I know we can't spend all 30 minutes on this, Matt, but the listeners want to hear you say that Brock Purdy is a better quarterback than Kenny Pickett. Do you think that
I
is?
won't say that. He was a way better quarterback on Sunday. But if GM Lynch called me right now and said, let's swap him, I would say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. We can revisit this. I mean, I know, guys. We all saw it. They weren't even close to each other yesterday. Yeah. I mean, that was one of the. Yeah, it wasn't even close.
If you want to overreact a little bit, it's 49ers Cowboys in the NFC Championship game, right? Those teams looked so dominant, so ready to play in week one. It was pretty unbelievable. Stars came out to play in that 49ers Pittsburgh Steelers game. The Stars came out to play in the Dallas Cowboys game with. Man. I mean, we talked about
games like that.
Both those games felt similar in a way that teams we knew were good, the Cowboys and 49ers, but it looked like they were playing college teams and not NFL caliber teams. Like they didn't belong on the same field. They were so much better in both of those games, the Cowboys and 49ers were.
Absolutely. And against teams that we thought that wasn't the Cardinals. You know what I mean? Like the Steelers were the hot team in the preseason, and they're always 500-ish or better. You know, the Giants were in the playoffs last year. Like, I don't think anyone thinks either one of those teams is picking in the top 5 this year. And they got dismantled like it was Bama versus Alabama State.
30-7, by the way, was the final 49ers and Steelers, and it didn't feel that close. 40-0 was the final score. Cowboys Giants. They couldn't even get some garbage time offense rolling, Matt, against the Dallas Cowboys. And I was a little skeptical of a team like the Giants being in that conversation with the Cowboys and the Eagles coming into the year and being the chippy team that they were last year and going in and you know, earning a playoff spot or even winning the East over the Cowboys and Eagles. And I came away from that game thinking, oh my gosh, yeah, there's no chance for that team. But as we know, things can change and week 2 is going to look a lot different. So I think Cowboys 49ers clearly are good, but on the flip side of that, are the Steelers and Giants bad?
Yeah, I'm not really to go there. Honestly, particularly the Steelers, but I do think those two teams are in contention for best team in the league right now. And one other note, just because we lumped these games together, I think there's 4 elite edge rushers in the league. There's Parsons, there's Watt, there's Garrett and Bosa, and Crosby would be the 5th. Those 4 were all awesome yesterday. Awesome. Like it's going to be a fun defensive player of the year race because those guys were all amazing.
Can we make a grand conclusion about the Chicago Bears, who I was jazzed about this year? Bears fans were jazzed about coming in, and the Green Bay Packers in that, man, the Bears still stink, and the Packers, they're still good, and Jordan Love is going to be just fine for the Green Bay Packers because I think that balloon for the Chicago Bears at home, as excited as they've been for a week 1 in a long time, that got deflated real quick Sunday.
I mean, much like the Steelers and Giants, I mean, there were some humbling, sobering performances yesterday, and I think Chicago very much is in that mix. Now, unlike those two teams that have winning records, the Bears picked first overall last year. So maybe a step forward is 6 or 7 wins, you know what I mean? Not the winning the division, things of that nature, you know. But I thought Green Bay, and particularly Love, and Aaron Jones as well, was very, very impressive, even without Christian Watson. The Bears defense to me is really problematic, to be honest with you. And we saw some flashes from Fields and DJ Moore and those guys, but I'm sitting here looking this up because I just wanted to make sure they didn't throw to the receivers all that much. I mean, there was still a lot of targets to the running backs, and, you know.
Yeah, if Fields' problem is still his problem.
Yeah.
A quick game. And I was hoping to see a lot more from him. And I got a little worried in the preseason because I still didn't see a lot of it. Didn't see a lot of it in this game. He's still super talented. He'll make a great throw every game. He'll make a great run every game. But the easy stuff, the quick game needs to get better. But I have a huge problem, great game plan-wise, with your guy, Luke Getsy.
Yeah.
Moore only got targeted 2 times.
Yeah.
He should have had 8 screen passes thrown his way. You know, they don't have to be downfield throws. How did you not get your best weapon on offense involved at all in that game from jump, from the scripted plays? So I have a big problem there as well. So I'm a little worried offensively, defensively, and coaching wise now for the Bears after 1 week.
Yeah, and too much horizontal stuff, too many throws to the backs, too many easy, layups that go nowhere. And I would have to rewatch it, but from a lot of what I saw was similar to Dallas in that some of these O lines just can't block the fronts. Rashawn Gary and that Van Ness was making plays. I think some of it is going to be just that discrepancy that we always talk about, that D lines are just better than O lines, and it showed up in a couple places.
That was another one for the Bears, is that O line was supposed to be a lot better. So if Fields is not a lot better, and the offensive line's not better, and they're not utilizing the new better weapons they have, and the defense is still a problem, and the Bears are still going to stink in 2023. And the Green Bay Packers have a really good roster top to bottom. And Jordan Love, looking at the EPA rankings that you sent me, Matt, Jordan Love was the second ranked EPA expected points added per play, not counting Monday Night Football, in week 1 of all the quarterbacks, second behind only Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, and that passed the sniff test. It's something I retweeted. Go check it out on my timeline. But all 30 quarterbacks that started yesterday so far, not the Wednesday or the Monday nighters, they have them ranked in EPA. And looking it over, it passes the sniff test. I thought Love was one of the better quarterbacks yesterday, without question. And frankly, Burrow was a distant 30th. Him and Daniel Jones were at the bottom.
Yep. So reshuffling the deck, I'm absolutely picking the Packers to win that division, and I think the
Lions look pretty good, though. I picked the Packers to win the division. I was about to say, boy, I'm feeling good about my Packer pick, but Lions went to Kansas City and won.
That's very true. That's very true. That's like a 2-horse race. Okay, more on that division, more on the other divisions in the NFL. Our biggest takeaways, and including that performance from Tua in week 1 next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. It's no different than hiring your players and coaches for an NFL team. You want to be 100% certain you have the best access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you do is you add your job to the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile, and it spreads the word that you're hiring. Then simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on just the right candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's like if one NFL team has access to combine information and interviews and the other teams don't. That's the advantage you can get at LinkedIn Jobs. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality candidates. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay. We teased the Tua thing. I mean, Tua just went bonkers, and what a fun game this one was, with the Los Angeles Chargers falling to the Miami Dolphins on Sunday with the final score of 36-34. And Tua had a bad interception, but that was about the only bad throw he made. He was stepping up in the pocket, throwing deep balls. Tyreek Hill was going crazy. 11 catches, 215 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, it was just offense on top of offense, really, with both of these teams. And Matt, here's another one, because we've had this conversation with some of our listeners. And is it time to say Tua might be even better than Justin Herbert? Herbert had his opportunity to go win that game at home, and he didn't do it. Tua did do it.
I thought Herbert played well. I thought Tua played amazing. I'm not going to say he's better than Herbert after one game.
Right.
But these two have had some classic battles lately. I mean, almost like Winslow getting carried off the field. I mean, like, this is, the best game of the day, the most fun game of the day. And the Tua thing that stuck with me was, boy, he orchestrated the offense extremely well, but he did some improv stuff in this game too, that, usually that's not his bag. When things didn't go to script, he still made a lot of plays, which is really impressive. Some amazing numbers from this game. I mean, every time the Dolphins snapped the ball, they gained 8.2 yards. Like, you don't see that. I mean, Tua threw for 466, 215 of it to Tyreek. And then on the flip side, they allowed 234 yards rushing. I mean, Josh Kelly had 91. Eckler went over 100. This was just back and forth. And yes, the Dolphins deserve to win. I feel like if this would have went another 4 quarters, maybe the Chargers win 80-79. You know what I mean?
It's one of the top 3, 4, 5 performances from a quarterback in week 1 statistically in modern history, right? Even not modern history. You got to go back to some names that aren't around anymore to talk about guys that were nearly 500 yards passing in week 1 for Tua. 3 touchdowns. He did have the interception, and man. You said it well, because it wasn't just, okay, I'm a system quarterback, gonna dink and dunk, gonna throw some short stuff. Hill's gonna make a lot of plays, and his playmakers did make plays, but Tua was making plays. He was making big time throws and big time plays. I loved seeing that from him, and that's the guy that everyone hoped he was going to be coming out about Alabama. What a fun game and a great start for the Miami Dolphins. And Mike McDaniel and Tua might be a really nice combination there. Hopefully, he does stay healthy this year.
Yeah, and boy, Mike McDaniel has, as you can imagine, even more wrinkles, some exotic motion stuff. And I mean, the Chargers were on their heels from the beginning, the defense. Good game. Great game.
How about those Las Vegas Raiders? After 1 week of the NFL season, they are alone at 1-0 atop the AFC West. Matt, were we too harsh on the Raiders, the new Jimmy G-led Raiders? Are they going to win the division in the West, Matt?
I don't think that's the case. I thought Jimmy played really, really well. And those weapons, Myers, Adams, even Mayer and Jacobs, look legit. I think that side of the ball is going to be pretty good. And I will say, I mean, again, we started the show with Overreaction Monday. I mean, I think we get way too far into the weeds with our preseason analysis. Of course, I mean, everyone does. That you get set in your ways that they're not going to be good. Their defense is going to be bad. However, there was a couple games, Raiders, Broncos. Where was the other one? I'm scrolling here. I apologize. Commanders, Cardinals, Titans, Saints, Bucks, Vikings, where maybe both teams are bad.
Yeah, evenly matched. I think there's
like,
because a team is great and a team is poor, but and I always use the reference for Major League Baseball, because in Major League Baseball you play 10 times more games than you do in the NFL, right? And at the end of the year, the very best team is like 600 winning percentage, and the worst team is like 400 winning percentage, right? It's a 60-40 thing, and I think that might be how it is in the NFL. It's just such a small sample that one team goes on a run, another team doesn't. So you look at a team like the Los Angeles Rams, for example. We're talking about them as maybe having the number 1 pick in the draft. They go to Seattle, a tough place to play, and they thumped them 30-13. The Rams beating the Seahawks. And so I think a lot of times it's a 60-40 thing, and it feels like that gap between teams is a lot bigger than it is.
I think that's 100% true, and I think it's easy to overlook that in this league all the time. And the Football Outsiders people and Warren Sharp and the guys that do win prognostication are much better at that, and realize that, guys, this is a very small sample size. Like we saw Chargers, Dolphins. If they played 100 times, does one of them win 55? The other one wins 45, maybe. Right. You know what I mean? And where Giants, Cowboys, maybe the Giants only win that once, and that was the worst extreme it could be. That's the outlier of 100. Maybe I'm saying that wrong. Maybe the Giants only win that game 3 or 30 out of 100, but that was the 100th one. That was as bad as it could get. That's just how the 100-sided die rolled that day. You know what I mean? But I'm impressed with the Rams. I mean, they ran the ball reasonably well. Kyron Williams was impressive. Puka Nacua with 15 targets and Tutu Atwell with 8. I mean, they both end up with 119 yards. And a couple things from this game. I don't have it in front of me, but there was some record or some, odd stat out there about Seattle's time of possession in the second half. They had the ball like 7 minutes or something. Like, I'm sitting there looking at my Tyler Lockett stock in fantasy. I'm like, they don't even ever have the ball. I mean, the Rams just dominated that way. And I do want to throw one thing out there, and this kind of correlates with that EPA quarterback stuff. I'm a little worried about Geno Smith. I mean, his last 6 games last year were more vintage Geno, and this was more vintage Geno. And I'm not saying he stinks. I just don't know if he's their quarterback for a long time. You know what I mean?
A couple of big weaknesses for the Seahawks. Well, first of all, injuries to their young tackles is tough.
Mm-hmm.
Their offensive line was well below where they expected it to be, and interior defensively, stopping the run and some of those things, it might be an issue for the Seahawks. And then what level of quarterback play are they going to get too? So it really makes you feel like it might be a one-team race in the NFC West. And of course, these things are going to even out. But I don't expect the Rams to whoop up on a lot of teams like this year. But Stafford was really good. Donald was really good. Again, the stars showed up for him. And you got guys like Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua doing big things. And so it pays to have a star quarterback and Sean McVay coordinating your offense, right? Because you can get some fantasy points from somebody on that offense at receiver, and having that Cooper Kupp role is a nice role to have, even if you're not Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, and I'm one of the people that said I think the Rams have a chance to pick first overall, that their roster is that bad. But I'm also one of those guys that said the Tomlins and Harbaughs and Paytons and those guys never going to bottom out. McVay might not bottom out either. I mean, people don't realize they never started the same offensive line twice last year. I mean, like the worst injury luck on the offensive line in the history of the game last year, let alone the rest of the guys that were hurt.
All right, a few more takeaways, a few more statements, and we'll play a little true or false with some of these. And if we are overacting or if we can believe what we saw in week 1 from 2023. Next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. You can still get in on that Monday Night Football action at FanDuel, or maybe your thoughts about who the Super Bowl champion this year might be. You can find all of those bets, weekly lines, and everything you can imagine for the NFL season and every sport at FanDuel. And right now, new customers get 200 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet. Again, new customers can bet $5 and get 200 in bonus bets guaranteed, no matter if that first $5 bet wins or loses. Plus, all customers at FanDuel who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything: spreads, player props, build your own parlays at FanDuel. Of course, the NFL season reigns supreme, but you can bet on anything. Major League Baseball still going. NBA and NHL get going pretty soon here in the fall. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Okay, Matt, I want to talk about the Baltimore Ravens a little bit. They won, it wasn't difficult. It was probably the perfect matchup for them to start the season with the Houston Texans. They got the Houston Texans at home. The Texans still obviously have a lot of work to do. New coaching staff, new regime there, brand new quarterback. Congratulations to CJ Stroud, gets his first NFL action and gets his first completion to himself. So his first reception and his first completion in the NFL for CJ Stroud. And I don't think there's too much to take away from the Texans here, and they fought hard in this game, but they were outmatched, and they lost 25-9 to the Baltimore Ravens. But J.K. Dobbins, I mean, guy can't catch a break in his NFL career. It looks like he's going to be done for the year with a torn Achilles, right? And so that's unfortunate, but Lamar Jackson and that new offense, I mean, it's a good thing they had the Texans in town, because I don't know if that was off to a great start. And so I'm kind of like side-eyeing what that Baltimore offense is going to look like right now.
Yeah, I mean, the Texans to me look like a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback and a very young team in a hostile environment. And the Ravens look like an established team that knows how to win in this league, but has a lot to figure out. And I don't think anyone was hit harder than injuries by the Ravens. You mentioned Dobbins. I mean, that's a heartbreaker, because he just got back from a huge injury. He's a free agent after the year. Who's going to sign him? You know what I mean? And at this point of the running back's career, how much time does he even have left? But Andrews didn't play in that game. Stanley got hurt. I don't know how bad these ones are, but Stanley got hurt. Linderbaum got hurt. Marcus Williams got hurt in the game. Like, important pieces. And besides Zay Flowers, it didn't look like the offense was ready yet. And it was something I said a lot going into this week was I think the Ravens could take some time to round into shape, especially offensively, but they got the right opponent.
Right, exactly. And they didn't need Lamar Jackson to do a lot, but it was like 9 fantasy points or something like that for Lamar Jackson in this game. 6 carries, 38 yards, not a lot of passing production. So that's a work in progress in Baltimore. I don't think it's clearly too early to say. Oh, I don't know. I think it's not too early to say the Texans are going to be have a rough year. Sure. I don't love they traded their first round pick next year in the draft. I'm not so sure about that move by the Texans because they're going to draft high again. But the Ravens, I think there's a lot to be determined with what that team ends up looking like this year.
Yeah, I picked them to be 4th in the North because I think their defense is very overrated, and now it might have a couple more injuries. And I thought the offense might take some time, and the North is also a really good division. But they got to win. We'll see. I think I'm almost certain they play the Bengals next week, which I don't know what to take out of that game. The Bengals
scrolling down here, let me scroll all the way down to the bottom of the list of EPA per play quarterbacks. And we have Joe Burrow at number 30 at the very bottom of the list. Yeah. Newly signed Joe Burrow. What is going on with the Bengals, man? Do you just throw this one out? And they've been kind of a slow starting team, right?
They have been, and I warned people that this is what happened last year, that they didn't play any of their starters. Quarterback wasn't around, and it was ugly for the first 2 games last year for Cincinnati. And it was worse this year, to be honest. But I think we're crazy if we don't give the Browns some credit. Like, I didn't think Deshaun played all that well, but they ran the ball fine. But the Browns' defense was flying around. And that defensive line that they invested so heavily in sure is paying off in that game. They were beating the crap out of him. And the other number I saw, too, was, how ESPN is that, like, pass rush win rate and block rate. I guess the Bengals blocking was the worst in the league yesterday.
Yeah, that kind of that tracks.
It adds up. Yeah,
that absolutely. I think it's unbelievable that Burrow was actually statistically worse than Daniel Jones, and
it's hard to believe that you could be.
Take it, and some of the quarterbacks that just had a really, really rough week 1.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure it was Burrow's fault 100%. Just brutal.
There's a speaking of young quarterbacks. There was the Colts had a lead on the Jaguars in the second half, and Jacksonville came back to win that game 31-21. Do you have any takeaways from young Anthony Richardson's debut?
Couple notes on that one was Lawrence is surprisingly low on that EPA list. And I think it just took the Jags a while to figure it out. As the game went on, the cream started to come to the top in a way. Richardson did some good things. I think he's going to be really hard to play against. I didn't watch a ton of that game, but maybe the Colts will be a little more competitive than given credit for. He makes plays, and Pittman got heavily involved. That was good to see. Ridley was heavily involved, and, Jaguars offense, spread the ball around pretty well. I didn't think Lawrence was as bad as that EPA thing implied, but, it took him a little bit to figure things out, and they got after him.
With the backfield in Jacksonville, Etienne was clearly the lead back and had a nice performance, had a touchdown run. Bigsby did get in there and had a touchdown, but not a lot of success for anyone running the football except for Travis Etienne in that game. So Travis Etienne owners can breathe a sigh of relief, I think, about his usage in Jacksonville to start the year. And if I'm not mistaken, Richardson did get dinged up in that game and 10 carries. He's got hit a lot. You don't want to see your quarterback get hit as much as he did.
He was sacked 4 times, too, and that defensive front did a pretty good job on him.
The other young quarterbacks that I wanted to bring up really quick before we go, Matt, and Desmond Ridder started off really bad for the Falcons. And in fact, I believe they were down at one point to the Carolina Panthers and then came back and had a much better game in the second half and did make a throw to Kyle Pitts at the end of the game. It was kind of like double teamed and Pitts made a nice play on the ball. But I don't know if I came away very excited about either one of those football teams in the Falcons or the Panthers.
I didn't either. I thought Atlanta would show better than they did, and they kind of lost at their own game. Just over 25 minutes of time of possession, and didn't run the ball voluminously like they usually do. And to me, the story was this was a pretty even game. Maybe even the Panthers were the better team to watch. but they had 3 turnovers and Atlanta had 0, and that's kind of enough,
Bijan is his
impressive.
start. I mean, he's a star player talent wise, but Tyler Algier outcarried him 15-10.
Yeah, and Bijan did some good things in the passing game. London and Pitts ended up with two catches between the two of them. I mean,
that's like fantasy owners are going to hate this team. I mean, they're going to split carries with the running backs, and we're going to have another one with Pitts and London. London had 1 target, 0 catches in that game.
Ritter completed 15 passes. And if you spread it around a little, Bijan had 6 of them. I mean, so they're not even hard passes. I mean, so he was bad in this game. There's no question. Will Ritter get better? That I don't know. I have some doubts. I mean, he'll probably be better than this game, but I have too much at Falcons fantasy stock throughout my league. I have a feeling.
And I think Arthur Smith after the game said something when he was asked about the usage there and Drake London. And he's like, yeah, we're not trying to win fantasy. We're trying to win real football games, which I agree with. It's going to frustrate fantasy owners, but at the same time, I don't know how many real football games they're going to win either with that same recipe with what we saw there. If they're not playing a team that's, playing a rookie quarterback like the Carolina Panthers.
And fortunately for them, their schedule is littered with games just like this.
At one point in the game, Tyjae Spears was out snapping Derrick Henry for the Tennessee Titans against the New Orleans Saints. And that was an odd one. They ended up, it ended up being a lot more Henry than Tyjae Spears in that game. But Spears is on the field a lot more than I expected. 15-3 carries wise. I would have expected a lot more usage from Derrick Henry in a close game that they're trying to win against the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans did hold on at home 16-15 there. And probably my biggest takeaway, though, in this game was that both quarterbacks are kind of all right. Like, kind of the same guys that they've been. And I don't know if either one is primed to lead their team deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, this was a slog. I mean, it really was. This was the offense was hard to come by. Defenses ruled the day. This is a Vrabel Titans script to no end that they ended up on the short end of. I just feel like a lot of Titans games will go this way. Not a real fun watch. I mean, Tannehill threw 3 picks, which was crucial in a game like that. Of course, You mentioned Spears. I mean, he only had 3 carries, but he was out there on 1st and 10 a lot. I thought Carr noticeably outplayed Tannehill, but he has a ceiling as well, as you mentioned. Olave looked good. Shaheed made some plays. I like the Saints' weapons, even though it was a tough go of things.
They weren't really able to get a ton going on the ground. Jamal Williams, 2.5 yards per carry, and they just kept pounding it with him, 18 carries for 45 yards. But it was and it was enough to win it in this one. So a couple of teams again, it's like, all right, let's see. There's a lot more teams in the middle of the NFL. Maybe even some of the teams you thought were good or some of the teams you thought were bad are going to be closer to the middle. I think maybe that's the smartest takeaway from week 1 of all. Yeah.
And Saints Titans might all want to be in the middle. Might not be quite in the middle.
Right. All right. Good stuff. Thanks everybody for listening, making us your first listen every day. Congratulations to Brock Purdy for being clearly a better quarterback than Pickett. That was a fun week 1, and we're going to do it again in week 2. We still have a Monday nighter. We'll turn the page to week 2 as well. More takeaways from this NFL opening week. And of course, your questions on our Wednesday mailbag episode. Get those in on Twitter at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL, or drop it in the YouTube comments. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Matt and I back tomorrow. Peacock and Williamson.